Welcome to Finding Certainty with your host and U.S. Army veteran, Patrick Laing. Over the next hour, you'll learn from Patrick and his expert guests how to attract more certainty into your business and your life. Now, here is your host, Patrick Laing.
Good morning and welcome to Finding Certainty. It's my favorite day of the week. I hope it is yours too. If nothing else, TGIF, right? Thank goodness that it is Friday. Today's a special day because June 6th, yesterday, 80 years ago, was D-Day. It was the day the Allies invaded Normandy, France, as our culmination, in a very real sense, one of our biggest contributions as Americans to the World War II, to the victory that followed there in Europe, one of the, as they call it, the Great War. If you're not familiar with D-Day, according to the French, the D stood for disembarkation. It was the American forces taking the beach against the Nazis and going on to take France and eventually win the war itself. The D also stands for day as a code. You may hear the operation is D-4. That means it's 4 days away. Or D+4 is 4 days after. D-Day would, in this definition, mean the day that the event occurred. Anyway, as you know, if you've been following my show for some time, I typically have a guest on, at least on 3 to 4 Fridays throughout the month. But on the first Friday of each month, starting this year, I decided I was going to start doing a monologue. And I'm going through the alphabet. A was for accountability. B was for balance. C was for composure. D, I spoke about discipline. Last month in May, I spoke about endurance. E was for endurance. This month, I decided to speak on one of my favorite topics, one of my favorite words, and that is faith. F is for faith. As we've been dissecting and unpacking the different forms and fashions, the different approaches, the different ways in which we can find more certainty in our lives, faith is most definitely a principle we should discuss. And it's most definitely a piece and a part of finding and creating and developing more certainty in our life. We have to have faith if we want to get there. You know, with faith, success or results often come at a cost. They come at a great cost. I mean, on D-Day, when the Allies invaded, thousands of men died. They most definitely paid a price for their faith that they could overcome. And there's a principle there that I think is important to at least touch on with any conversation surrounding faith. Is just because you have faith doesn't mean that it's going to be easy. It doesn't mean that it's guaranteed. It doesn't mean that you won't fail. What faith means and what faith brings to the picture is the ability to persist, the ability to work through the challenges, to pick yourself back up and keep going even when you fall flat on your face, even when you fail. Some of my favorite stories are from the Revolutionary War. It's a great example. We're talking about World War II, but let's go back a little bit further. Anyone who's seen my Zooms or seen my YouTube videos will typically see the picture of George Washington in the background. I'm a big fan of the Revolutionary War, and I have several pieces of art and books and others focused on this part in our history. I think I love it so much because it is full of stories of faith. Even the fact the patriots, the founding fathers, the signers of the Declaration of Independence, the fact that they would even conceive of going up against the greatest superpower and military power in the history of the world was a great act of faith. And repeatedly, they had to have faith because their forces were just decimated for most of that experience, for many, many years. But faith precedes the miracle, right? Faith is a little bit like shining a flashlight on the path on which you trod. It's dark. You don't know what's out ahead. There are trip hazards. There's potholes. There's vines maybe across the path. There's maybe even animals. And I mean, the list goes on, right? But you're shining that flashlight, that torch, and it's just shining on and lightening your way just a little bit ahead. Depending on the flashlight you have, obviously, the better some work, and some can shine quite a ways. But in most cases, it's only lighting your way for a few feet. And faith is kind of like that. Even if you have faith, it doesn't mean that you can see the end from the beginning. It doesn't mean you know the outcome. It doesn't mean you know exactly what's gonna occur. It just means you have that light shining your way a little bit at a time, and you can take those steps, and little by little you can move down that path to become and to arrive where you want to be. Now, faith applies in a lot of different areas, right? It's not just in war. It's not just in military battles and so forth. It's not just in history. It applies in our marriages. It applies in our relationships, in parenting, in starting a business, developing a hobby. I've been working on trying to learn how to play the piano. I took lessons as a young man years and years ago. Never really learned how to read music. I think I have a good ear for it, have the ability to do so, but stepping out into the dark, having faith that I can do so, doesn't mean that it's not going to take work. Doesn't mean it's not going to be hard, right? Doesn't mean it's going to work. Now, I have faith that it can. I ordered a course from this amazing pianist and coach named Stephen Ridley. He has what he calls the Ridley method, which I'm really enjoying. I spend a little bit of time on it. I try to every day. It's one of the keys, another one of the tips that I've found to help make faith come to pass, to help put faith in action, is to be consistent, to just keep trying every day to do a little bit more, to not give up. Even if you can't see the end from the means, or the means from the end, you can't see the outcome, you can't see the results. That flashlight is just shining a little bit ahead of you. I mean, I do my practicing each day. I work on my exercises. I can't see where I'll be a week from now, a month from now, a year from now, but I have faith that I'll get there, just as we do when we're shining a path, shining a light on our path and stepping forward one step at a time. We have faith that we'll get there. We have faith that we can. Definition in the dictionary says that faith is a complete trust or confidence in someone or something. There's also a religious definition, of course, strong belief in God or in the doctrines of a religion. It's based on spiritual apprehension rather than proof. One of my favorite phrases kind of echoes this thought about how there's no proof, right? It's not tangible. We can't feel it, touch it, see it, smell it. We just believe that it's out there. We believe the path will take us where we want to go. We believe in maybe the faith of our fathers, the religion that we're a part of, our political leaders, our friends, our loved ones. We believe, even though we can't see. This phrase that I'm a big fan of says, if you have faith, you hope for things which are not seen, which are true. Now, there's an interesting element to it, right? You can have faith in things that are false. You can have faith in things that will disappoint you. We've all been there. We've had faith in people who let us down, faith in, and speaking of political leaders, right? Political leaders that were a disappointment. Projects, companies, models, advertisers. I mean, the list goes on and on of things that we put our faith in and we're let down. But I love that if you have faith, you hope for things which are not seen, which are true. So faith, true faith, resounding faith, eternal and lasting faith is in things that are real. So here's another interesting insight. It says that when you break faith, the definition is to be disloyal. Yeah, as in an attempt to make us break faith with our customers. And to keep the faith is just the opposite. It's to be loyal. I would ask the fans to keep the faith with us too, for example. I want to talk a little bit more about that later, but it's interesting insight that I saw as I was researching this definition, that it talks about being loyal and being disloyal. And it defines that as another definition, another version of faith. Interesting, right? Are we loyal to our cause, to our family, to our business? Are we committed? I don't know how we can profess to have faith if we're not. If we can't roll with the punches, if we can't overcome and work through the challenges that face us, we can't. That is not faith. It's just the opposite. So I love that. When it talks about loyalty, it talks about, we think of consistency, of effort, of determination. Last month I spoke on endurance, E for endurance, for the month of May. And I talked about how critical it is that we just keep going. It doesn't make much sense to have faith in something but not put any effort into it. Faith begets fidelity, focus, firmness, even forcefulness, right? We have faith in something. We're gonna make it happen, right? We're gonna stick with it. I love those F words. Those are good F words. But before we can or do have faith, though, we've got to start. We've got to just start putting one foot after the other, and we've got to persist. We can't give up. For years now, I've taught my salespeople about what I call the belief ladder. Because, see, nobody starts with faith, certainly not knowledge. We start with doubt. We start with trepidation, maybe even fear. We start with uncertainty in most cases when we're new or unsure or, we're uncertain about this objective or starting out a new company, embarking on a new relationship, having a baby. There's a lot of fear and doubt and worry and uncertainty when we start on this path. And yet, if you think of it as a stairway and think of several steps that you're moving up on this ladder of faith, this journey of faith, I think it really helps put it into perspective. Okay? Think about this. You start with fear. Maybe you go from there to doubt. You're still doubtful, but you're starting to move up the path. Then you go to hope. That's the next step. You hope you can do it. You hope that it works. And then you start to move into faith. You still don't see it. You still don't see results. You still don't have certainty. But that faith begins to grow into belief and eventually into knowledge. And in time, it grows into perfect knowledge. You have no question that it's true. And then it becomes confidence. I also refer to this as the confidence cycle. It's a process we all go through multiple times throughout our life. But I believe it helps us as we're pursuing more faith in our lives and certainty in the process that we keep it in mind And we keep asking ourselves, where am I at on the confidence cycle, this belief ladder or faith ladder? Where am I at? Because if we can realize where we're at and what the next step will be, I think it really helps us put it into perspective. One of my very favorite examples of faith, an analogy of faith, is from the Book of Alma. It's a book in the Latter-day Saint Scriptures, the Book of Mormon, and he talks about faith as a seed. I'm going to read a verse or two from it because he describes faith better and the development of faith better than anything I've ever heard. When I first stumbled across this, when I first heard this, I just was blown away. It says, "But behold, if you will awake and arouse your faculties, even to an experiment upon my words." So even if you just will experiment, just try. It says, "and exercise a particle of faith, even if you can no more than desire to believe." Okay, so that's the first step. You have that doubt and fear, but you want to believe. You want to get there. You want to make this business work, this relationship, this parenting thing, right? You desire to believe. It says, "Let this desire work in you, even until you believe in a manner that you can give place for a portion of my words." Now he's talking about faith in general and testimony. But then he says this, "Now we will compare the word unto a seed. If you give place that a seed may be planted in your heart, behold, if it be a true seed." Remember our definition of faith. It's hope, it's belief in something we cannot see, but that is true. It says, "If it be a true seed or a good seed, if you do not cast it out by your unbelief, that you will resist the Spirit of the Lord. Behold, it will begin to swell within your breasts. And when you feel these swelling motions, you will begin to say within yourselves, it must needs be that this is a good seed, or that the word is good for," and he gives us three evidences, three ways to know that we're on the right path. And I love this. This is what really jumped out at me. He says, "Must needs be that this is a good seed, or that the word is good, for it beginneth to enlarge my soul. Yea, it beginneth to enlighten my understanding. Yea, it beginneth to be delicious to me." Let me repeat that, because those three steps are integral pieces of this puzzle that we're putting together. They're critical steps. It says it begins to enlighten my understanding. So we start to understand more of what we're doing, whether it's a journey. We start to understand what's working, what's not working in our business, our relationship, how to parent this child who's getting bigger and maybe challenging or maybe isn't. But we start to understand it better. Then it says, so first he says it begins to enlarge my soul. So we start to feel it. We start to feel like things are happening. Then it begins to enlighten our understanding. We start to understand the process. And then he says, it beginneth to be delicious to me, which to me says we want it more. We feel it, we understand it, and we want it. He says, "Now behold, would not this increase your faith? I say unto you, yea. Nevertheless, it hath not grown up to a perfect knowledge." See, we're not done yet. Just because we've started to develop faith, maybe even knowledge, we still have a long way to go. It's a journey, not an event or a destination. I'll come back to this point a little bit later. Okay. Goes on to say, is this not real? I say unto you, yea, because it is light. Whatsoever is light is good, because it is discernible. Wherefore you must know that it is good. And now behold, after you have tasted this light, is your knowledge perfect. And again he says, "Behold, I say to you, no. Neither must ye lay aside your faith, for you have only exercised your faith to plant the seed. You might try the experiment to know if the seed was good." As I was saying, you're not done yet. So how do we get there? I'm going to share with you several insights for how to develop our faith. We have this seed, we've planted it in our heart or we've embarked on this journey. We've started this business, this relationship. We've had a child. We're working to parent, whatever the case might be, right? We've planted the seed. It's started to grow, and we feel it. We start to understand more and more, and we want it more and more. These are evidences that we're on the right path. Well, one of the ways we can get there is with good leaders, okay, with good mentors and coaches and friends and family. They don't give up on us, right? They endure to the end. They teach us to see the forest for the trees. They continue to remind us that it's worth it and that we're worth it, that we're good enough. The Allies invaded France on D-Day under the leadership of General Dwight D. Eisenhower, who went on to become the 34th president between 1953 and 1961. The planning for this invasion began years in advance, okay? Although it wasn't until December of 1943 when General Eisenhower was appointed the supreme commander of the Allied Expeditionary Force, and the preparations for the future operation ensued. It was under a code name Overlord, which I thought was interesting. But anyway, Eisenhower actually planned and supervised two of the most consequential military commands of World War II: Operation Torch, which was in North Africa, and the invasion of Normandy, which was, of course, in France. I thought that was interesting, though. One interesting thing about President Eisenhower is that he is best known for creating our interstate highway system. He did several things. He expanded Social Security and several New Deal programs and so forth, but he played a major role in establishing the interstate highway system, which, of course, is this massive infrastructure, this gigantic project consisting of tens of thousands of miles of divided highways. A project that he set out on with faith. He had faith that we as a country could be more connected. It would help with industry. It would help with growth. It would help with education. It would help with everything. He had that vision of, just like he had in the war and the operations that he oversaw, he had a vision of what could be done. He knew it would come at a great cost. He knew it would take effort. He knew it would take persistence. All the things we're talking about. But he also had faith. He had faith that it could be done, and obviously it was. We have freeways today. So faith to build highways. I thought that was an interesting insight for President Eisenhower. But when we set out on a journey, we don't know what to expect. We may have a flashlight who's lighting the way little by little, but we're not certain of what's going to happen. There's always potholes and twists and turns and bends and deer crossing the road and so forth and so on. The Allies had an idea of where the Germans were entrenched in Normandy. They knew there was going to be resistance. They knew they would suffer losses, but they didn't know everything. We may be afraid, but when we have someone leading the way who's been down that path before us, a mentor or a coach, that can most definitely help. Mentors who raise our sights and instill confidence, or in other words, faith, in us all are integral to us, one, developing faith, and two, finding certainty in our lives. They take their faith and they imbue it in us. It's kind of like they let us borrow it, while ours is getting its feet under itself. They hold us accountable. They help us see our worth. They push us. They applaud us. They encourage us. They cheer us on. And it's such an important piece of getting where we want to go. They have faith in us, and they help us have faith in them and faith in what we're doing. And they help us to trust in their counsel and their encouragement. So often, right, we're our own worst critics. We're harder on ourselves than anyone else is. But when we have a coach or a mentor leading the way, it's immeasurably helpful. If you don't have one right now, I encourage you to find them. Go out, network, surround yourself by better people. They say that we will become the sum total of the 5 people we spend the most time with. So look around, and if you see 5 people that are not raising you up and not inspiring you and leading you in a better way, I encourage you to find 5 more. Maybe replace 1 or 2 of them. Maybe you need to replace all 5 of them. Understand the importance of having good guides. I'm incredibly grateful for the team that I have surrounding me at Certainty Management. I'm going to talk a little bit more about them down the road, but I'm blessed to have a team and colleagues and vendors and more that are helping us get where we want to go and helping us do so faster and more easily than we ever could have done on our own. And that's one of the benefits of having a mentor or a coach is they've been down that path. They can teach you shortcuts. They can teach you what pitfalls to avoid. They can help your faith take on form. It can help your faith take on function. It can help it take wing. Okay, they say the wind beneath our wings. That's what mentors do for us. We just have to have faith in what they share. I remember my son Anderson, when he was a little boy, about 4 or 5 years old, he did not want his Happy Meal toy. He was not happy with the toy he got. And he wanted to go replace it. And I told him, you can do it, bud, but you need to go ask yourself. He's like, no, you ask Dad. I said, you can do it. I make a lot of mistakes. I haven't been a perfect father. I've tried. I've made an effort. But one thing I'm proud of in my life is my children are confident. It means a lot to me because I didn't feel that way when I was a young man. I didn't feel very confident as a kid. So I wanted them to have a different experience. And so I've spent the last 26 years for my 5 children, 3 boys, 2 girls, helping them believe in themselves and the direction they're moving. Constantly cheering them on, building them up, encouraging them and reminding them of what they're worth. This is a good example because my son eventually said, oh, I want it, so I'm going to do it. And he walked up to the counter. He was shorter than the counter. He held his toy up. He said, can I exchange my Happy Meal toy? And they gave it to him. He saw it worked. And now he's a Division I athlete for Cal State. He's a diver. One of the most confident kids I've ever met. And all of our kids are. And I'm grateful for that because I've tried to mentor them and help instill in them faith in who they are and what they can become. I think we've done a pretty good job of that. You know, our mentors help us stretch and grow and become even more. And it's an important reminder to look outward. Look for mentors who will raise you up. And at the same time, seek to be a mentor to those that you can do the same for. We're up against our break. We're only going to do 1 break today, but when we come back, I'm going to share with you 3 examples from my life that have taught me some important lessons concerning faith. I'll be right back.
Follow Voice America at Facebook.com/Voice America for juicy updates from your favorite radio shows and podcasts.
Certainty Management can help create more certainty in your life with our deep discount health insurance options, even for 1099s, part-time employees, volunteers, and more. Pay less to protect yourself, your loved ones, and your team. Call 888-684-3122 for a free quote today. That's 888-684-3122. Visit us on the web at CertaintyTeam.com. That's Certainty, TEAM, like Mary.com.
Have you become a member yet? Sign up now to become a member of Voice America. It's always free and easy. Plus, you get to take advantage of some great member benefits. Get unlimited access to millions of hours of on-demand content across all of our channels. Keep track of your favorite episodes, shows, and hosts in your own customizable library. Find out what shows you might be interested in based on your favorites. Plus, you get insider access with our newsletter. Membership gives you more. Sign up at voiceamerica.com and click register at the top right.
If you're a nonprofit in need of funding, we can help. Certainty Management is a cost reduction firm that also helps churches, schools, sports teams, and other nonprofits raise unlimited zero-cost funding. Best of all, you don't have to sell anything or ask for donations. Call 888-684-3122 to learn more today. That's 888-684-3122. Visit us on the web at CertaintyTeam.com. That's Certainty, T-E-A-M, like Mary.com.
When it comes to business, you'll find the experts here. Voice America Business Network.
You are listening to Finding Certainty with Patrick Laing. Have a question for Patrick or his guests? Join us on the show at 866-472-5790. That's 866-472-5790. Now, back to the show with Patrick.
So we're talking a little bit about mentors on the break. If you're watching the YouTube video, I was sharing an example of a little girl who wanted to buy a bicycle, and her dad helped her make up the difference. It was immeasurable. It was impossible for her to buy a bike on her own. She'd worked for several days, several weeks, and had saved up about $2, right, for a $200 bike. And she just came to him and she said, "Dad, I've done everything I can. I need your help." She had faith in him and faith in the process, but she was immeasurably short. And he gives it as an example of the atonement of Christ, where we all fall short, right? But he makes the difference up. He lifts us up. He makes us whole. And in that knowledge that can happen, or that through our mentorship, through our friends, they can help us and we can help others. Together we can get there. I think it's a really beautiful example, and one of the reasons why we should have more faith, why we shouldn't doubt, we shouldn't worry. We're in this together. If you don't feel like you have that sort of tribe or that sort of network, go find it. You can't do it sitting at home watching Netflix. You've got to go network, join a church, find a group, find new friends, develop those relationships. You won't find it sitting on the couch, and you won't find it sitting in a bar. But you can find it. You know, life can be overwhelming sometimes. It comes at us fast, right? There's a lot happening. Dale Carnegie said that one of the best ways for us to deal with worry is to picture the worst possible outcome, deal with it in our minds, and then start living toward something better. And having faith that the worst case scenario probably isn't going to happen. That was a way for you to, in your mind, and at least as part of your mindset, to deal with worry and anxiety, to have faith that something better will happen, but you're prepared. You at least have a plan in case it doesn't, in case the worst does happen. If you have a plan, you have more peace. You have more confidence. You can have faith that whatever comes may come, but you're prepared. There's another story from an author, a professor at Brigham Young University for years, Hugh Nibley. He wrote a book called Approaching Zion. And he talked about how the most important thing we can do is be facing upward. He compared life and repentance and progress to a stairway. He said, some of us are jumping 6 stairs at a time. Some people are going 10 or 20 stairs in a week, and some of us are struggling to get up just 1 stair. But he said the most important thing, though, is which direction are you facing? To face upward, to face forward, is to have faith. That's a very simple way to think of it. Don't look down. Don't be discouraged. But look up. My parents have a sign in their house that says, "Reach up." That's even a more proactive version of the same statement, right? Don't just look up, but reach up. That's faith in action, as they say, right? Faith without works is dead, as another verse so aptly says, I think. Now, 3 quick examples from my life. Marriage is definitely an area that takes faith, right? It takes faith to get married. It takes faith to stay married and be successful at marriage. And my story has not been easy. I've been married 3 times, and I'm a good husband. I've tried hard. First marriage ended unexpectedly after 7 years. My wife got sick. She had to have a hysterectomy when she was 28 and was suddenly in menopause at that age. She was struggling, and she ended up taking off and leaving our marriage, and it broke my heart. My second marriage, I married a widow with 3 children. Had two girls and a boy, 4, 3, and 1. We had 2 boys together. I now have 5 children. After 9 years of marriage, she told me that she had married me so the kids could have a dad. And she said, I'm sorry, she said, but you deserve to marry someone who marries you for you. Again, my heart was broken. But I didn't give up, right? I didn't even ever consider giving up. I mean, I'm an eternal optimist for one thing, but I'm much happier being married. Even though those didn't work, I still had faith that it could work the next time around. Third try's the charm, right? I've now been married to my best friend, love of my life, Tesha N. Laing, and it's good. And the 3 lessons that I learned from this are that, one, you got to keep looking up. I was talking about that just a minute or 2 ago. You got to not just look up, but reach up, proactively try. Got to take your blinders off. Don't get down. Don't stare at the ground. Don't get lost in the weight of it all. I mean, life is hard. It's heavy. We all go through trials. It is part of life. It is the mortal experience. But if we get downtrodden and we get discouraged and we're staring at the ground or we're looking at our toes, we're going to miss out on opportunities. We're going to miss out on those things that can infuse joy into our lives and success. And so that's the first lesson, is to keep looking up. Take the blinders off. Reach up, as my mom and dad sign says. The second lesson is to look inward. Do some self-reflection. Be honest with yourself. Ask for and accept input. I was a good husband in a lot of ways. There's other ways where I could have done better in my previous marriages. There's ways I could do better today. But I keep trying, and I keep asking for input and feedback. I keep reading books and learning new techniques and new strategies. I keep looking inward as well as looking upward. The Oz Principle, which I've talked about several times, is a book about accountability. One of their favorite lessons they teach is to keep asking the question, what else can I do? And it's a really important question. Not what else someone else can do and how they should change and so forth and so on, but what can we do to do better in our marriage and in our relationships? Another question, this is the third lesson, and it goes along line with this, but that is to remove expectations. I've spoken a couple of times about a book I've been reading. I'm reading it a second time right now. It's called Real Love by Greg Bear. And he talks about the fact that one of the most damaging things that we can have in marriage is expectations of each other. Now, if we make a promise, you can expect that promise to be kept. If you promise you pick up the kids after school and you don't show up, then you're in trouble, right? But I'm talking about expectations that we impose on each other. He goes on to explain that there are only really 3 responses in any relationship, and we can choose which one we want to take. The first is to live with it and like it, i.e. choose to be happy, choose to have faith, choose to see the silver lining, look for the good. Right? So the first one is live with it and like it. The second is live with it and hate it. You can choose to be angry, sad, depressed. It's your choice. It's not your partner's. It's not their responsibility or their job. It's not their fault. You can choose which approach you want. Or you can leave. That's the third option. It's always an option. Obviously, the divorce rate in America, a lot of people take that option. But only one of these demonstrates faith. That's the live with it and like it. What does that mean, like? You may not like everything that your spouse does or your partner does. None of us do. Ellen Kreidman wrote a book years ago called Light Her Fire, and she says that if you decide to exchange your partner for someone else, you're gonna just find another partner with 10 things you don't like about them. The current one, you like 10 things about them, you don't like 10 things about them, but literally, if you trade them in for a new model, you're just going to find someone else with 10 things on both sides of that coin. So why not stick with it? Why not have faith and choose to live with and be happy and remove your expectations? Why not choose faith? Sure, you can choose your circumstances. You can change your partner if you want. Or you can choose to look up and look inward. And you can choose to remove your expectations. It's good advice. I highly recommend you take it. I highly recommend you read both those books. Ellen Kreidman, Light Her Fire, and Greg Bear, Real Love. Second lesson is about starting a company. I'm the founder and CEO of a consulting firm named Certainty Management, also co-founder of a joint venture technology firm named Certainty Global. And the lessons I've learned from starting and building a company, well, first and foremost, that it's hard. Now, we started our company in 2019, literally days before the pandemic hit. And so we basically spent the first 2+ years building our business in a worldwide pandemic during COVID-19. But the first lesson I would teach you and I would say is to follow your heart. Do what you're passionate about. Step out into the dark, but if you're doing something you love, something you're good at and that you enjoy, it doesn't even feel like work. So be selective. Find what lights your fire and go after it. It's a great way to have faith if you're working in something that you find joy in. You do have to step out into the dark, just like Indiana Jones back in the day in the search for the Holy Grail. He stepped out into the dark and wasn't sure what was there, and it turned out there was a path, right? Back to my example of a flashlight. It only lights a little bit ahead, but you've got to know that you're on the path or on a path that would bring you joy, that would make you happy, something that you're excited about. If you're trying to fit a round peg into a square hole, it's hard to do. The second lesson is to have balance. I talked about balance in February. B is for balance. It was my birthday month, and it was pretty important because it's a really important topic to me. But it's hard. We're busy. But we have to have faith in our family, faith in our relationships, faith in our faith, right? Our religions, our churches, our hobbies, our interests. We've got to have balance. It's hard to have faith in our future if we have no time to even come up for air, if we're exhausted and burned out. I work a lot of hours. I even pull all-nighters, probably more often than I should, but I love what I do, and I take time off too. You got to have faith in your people as well, your team, your vision. You got to have faith in those around you, but have balance. Try to stick with it. Take a break sometimes as well. As I said, I'm very grateful for the examples I have on our team that are both examples of hard work, but also examples of working hard and playing hard, and of making income, but also making a difference, of doing business, but also doing good. They're great examples. I'm very grateful for them. The third lesson, it resonates what I've been talking about, is mentorship. Surround yourself with people who are better at things than you are. People who believe in you and who bring value and talent and leadership and even constructive criticism when you need it. I have members of our team, one in particular, Miss Ada Brown from Atlanta, Georgia. She's this extraordinary Black matriarch who tells me what I need to hear when I need to hear it, and I am truly grateful for it. I think she's a little surprised how much I take it in and just really appreciate her feedback and there's others on our team, my partner Frank Hellring and Victoria Foster and Jill McCauley. They'll tell me what I need to hear. And that mentorship, that feedback, I think makes us better. It's helping me become a better leader. It's helping us become a better company. I'm truly grateful for that. We just recently recruited a friend and a colleague who was highly recruited. We were up against some pretty stiff competition, but we hired a friend of mine by the name of Andy Tenney. And, he's a great example of someone who is really good at things that I'm not good at. And he's not just good at them, but he enjoys them more than I do. I prefer to be in an office with my door closed, working on projects and creating systems. I've been in sales for 40 years, but it's not what I love. It's not what I enjoy. I'm good at it, but it's not what lights my fire. I love creating and building and strategizing and planning. That's my forte. Andy, he's a total gregarious leader and servant leader. He's a people person. And so we're already looking at ways where he can do more of the sales and follow-up and more of the customer management, and I can focus more on other things. It's one of the keys of building a great team and creating faith in what you're doing is not just creating mentorship, but finding a tribe and building a network of people that complement what you do, that are good at what they do, better than what you do, better at it than you are. Been reading another book called Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. He talks about asking 3 questions. What are you good at? What are you passionate about? And what can make you money? Spend your time on those things in your business, at least, that are productive, that have the greatest return on investment. And buy back your time. Hire the rest of it out. He teaches a principle that you should look at what you earned or what you're paid in a year divided by 2,000 hours. That shows you your hourly wage, what you're worth or what you're being paid per hour. He says if you can hire somebody for 1/4 of that amount, you should. If you're making $100 an hour on average, you should hire anything that you can hire out for $25 an hour or less. You should do it. It's good advice. Okay. The next lesson, before I run out of time here, was this radio show. It took faith to start this show. It was a big investment of time, investment of money, something I'd never done before. I entered into this experience almost 2 years ago with some trepidation. Now, I love to talk, but I'd never been a radio host. I never interviewed people like this. I'd never been on a live broadcast. I was recently asked to be on a show called Next at the Mic. And we talked about it, several of us radio hosts that were talking about what it was like to have to show up and be prepared to go live every week and how much it's made us grow. Now, the lessons I've learned from this is to listen to input. You're seeing a pattern here, I'm sure, but to listen to input. Open your eyes, take your blinders off, as I said. Open your ears and listen to and hear what others have to say. I think I've developed well and am progressing as a radio host because I've had great mentors. Robert Cellino, the general manager, Frank Hellring, my partner and co-host. They've really helped me to become a better host and to ask better questions and to learn this business. And it's been life-changing advice. That reciprocal, I'll help you, you help me faith in each other. I can help you and you can help me. This concept of reciprocity, which is so important, so popular with Frank and others. I think it's a really important principle to remember. Ask yourself, how can I serve this person? Not just how can they help me? Remember to not just look for mentors, but be a mentor as well. Create that reciprocity, that dual, two-directional service, and it changes everything. Not only how you see things, but how you feel about everything. Your whole perspective. It's much easier to do and to develop faith in your life when you're doing these things. I highly recommend them. Keep yourself open to the idea that you may be wrong. You may not have all the answers. I get feedback from Ada and Victoria and Frank, John Santoyo, others that I work with that tell me when I'm on the wrong track. And if I'm too proud, too busy, too distracted to hear them, invariably things don't go as well as they could. I have another partner named David who we butt heads a little bit because we're different personalities. He's very analytical, very demanding, but I'll tell you what, he's made me a better leader, and he's made our company a better organization. We may not have all the answers. We may not have the same experience. We may be too close to it. We may have the wrong vantage point or a different perspective. And if we'll listen to the input, be open to the input, we will invariably do better. Remember that the second phase of developing faith is to water that and to nurture it and to till it. You know, we start to feel it, we start to understand it better, we want it more, but then there's still so much more to do. We're not done. Our confidence will continue to grow bigger and bigger as we do so, but we've got to keep growing and we've got to push ourselves. The third lesson for the radio show is to push yourself, just like I did becoming a host with zero experience. But look for opportunities to grow and stretch and become more of who you can be. Remember to look at things and have a plan and look back on things with hindsight, but also in the middle of the experience to step back, have some mid-sight, as I call it, and ask yourself, how could I do better? Step back and say, and give yourself some room to ask, how am I doing? What can I learn from this? How can I grow? Part of developing our faith is slowing down a little and asking these type of questions. Looking for answers, seeking solutions, looking forward with an eye of faith, but being open to that input and that feedback and those impressions that come. Stay steady and true, even when going through adversity. Don't be fair weather faithful, as they say. You can do this. They say that water off a duck's back is a good goal, and I agree. Don't get distracted. Don't get thrown off. Don't lose your momentum. Last week I talked about endurance. I gave an example of a kayak. How if you just keep moving forward, you're not going to flip over. There's another story from the Book of Mormon that I want to close with. A story of a prophet named Nephi, whose brothers were really not good. They were not very good guys. They tied him up. They abused him. They were terrible to him. They were on a ship trying to cross the ocean, and they tied him to the mast. And a big storm came up. For 3 days, he was tied to the mast. His arms were chafing. His brothers were partying and causing problems and mocking him and his parents. And he was tied to this mast in the middle of this raging storm on a ship that was about ready to capsize. But you know, he didn't just suffer through it. He stayed true. He didn't just survive, but he thrived. He focused. He stayed spiritually centered. He actually prayed the entire time and even praised God as he was going through that. And in the end, when they finally released him, they were afraid they were going to drown. They released him. Immediately, the storm calmed. It's an interesting point that when we stay faith-focused, we stay consistent, we stay centered, we come out on the other end in a much better place. Christ was the greatest example of this, right? He suffered in Gethsemane. He said, Father, if thou be willing, take this cup from me. Remove this cup from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but thine be done. He was a perfect example of this principle. So don't give up. We're out of time. I'm grateful for the examples of this in my life. Thank you for all of you veterans out there who, any of you who are still with us, who were there at D-Day. I know there's a handful still living. Thank you for your service. And thank you for your time today. I hope you have a good weekend. Hope I taught you a principle or two that will be of help to you. I know that faith in your life can change your life, and hope that it does. Certainty is out there. You can find it. And we can help. Thanks for being with me this morning. I wish you the very best. And I'll talk to you later.
Thanks for tuning into today's episode of Finding Certainty. We hope you've gained some more insight into how to create more certainty in your own business or nonprofit. Join us next week for another taste of the Certainty Experience. Until then, we wish you greater certainty in all that you do.